Welcome back to another episode of Looking Forward to It. I'm Tony Garso, I'm your host today, and I'm here with Erren Van Dyne,
Hello.
Michael Damiani,
Hey everyone.
and Mike D'Antoni. And we are here back again for our 12th episode, and we're going to talk a bit about Star Ocean 5 and some of the new Final Fantasy 14 3.3 details that we've kind of led up to, but we haven't had kind of our post-patch impressions. So to start off the show, we're going to go ahead and have Erren talk a little bit about what's new on the site. So what's new?
All right, so this week, one of the big things we posted was our hands-on preview for Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age, which we got to see in E3 this year. We also learned that the Final Fantasy XIV's patch 3.35 will arrive on July 19th, along with the highly anticipated Deep Dungeon content. And in other news, Kingsglaive Final Fantasy 15 came out this week in Japan, and alongside that, we heard more on some of the characters from the film and what their significance is to the actual game. The Final Fantasy XIV universe expanded this week as well with the third episode of Brotherhood Final Fantasy, the companion anime, and they also released a video explaining some of the contents of the universe. Capping out the weekend, fans who got to go to Japan Expo in France had a chance to play World of Final Fantasy for the first time, and so we've posted up 10 minutes of that on the site.
Sounds really good. Definitely check out the site if you're looking forward to any of those games. We've got a bunch of cool write-ups from the staff too. So I guess there was a big thing that went on in Japan. We had Kingsglaive come out officially in Japanese select theaters, or is it like all across the...
Yeah, it's like a limited engagement sort of situation, and so Japanese fans have been posting their impressions, and some
Spoilers.
English-speaking people who live in Japan have as well. So there's a lot of spoilers out there, and I've read some of them. I'm not gonna lie.
We'll have to talk about that, but we won't discuss spoilers. We'll talk about Kingsglaive for sure. We'll kind of dance around.
But yeah, that movie's out in Japan. The US is supposed to get it sometime. They say August 19th, but they haven't really put too much detail out about it. And then Europe is still kind of up in the air.
So we also had Brotherhood Episode 3 come out, and have you had a chance to watch that, any of you guys?
Yeah, I watched it.
No, I think I mentioned before, I'm waiting till all the episodes air before I watch it.
Oh, I had to watch it. It's a Gladio episode, come on.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
So thoughts, impressions, did it strike you as something that kind of added to the universe, or maybe it was just kind of a sweet little story to add to the character?
I feel like I like what they're doing with the anime, but I wish that the episodes were a little longer because like they're actually really short. They're only like 12, 13 minutes or so, about half of a typical anime episode. So like just as it's starting to get into, you know, everything with the plot and the character development, then it ends and you're like, well, but I wanted to see more kind of thing.
I thought it was as good as the Prompto episode was, this one was as mediocre. It didn't really do anything with Gladio's character. I was just a little disappointed by that.
I would actually disagree with that because, I guess, sort of spoilers, but he starts out in the episode and he's like, well, I don't really care about Noctis because he's a spoiled brat. And, you know, after the whole situation in the episode, he sort of changes his mind. So there was that, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, it was good because it introduced I guess it's his kid sister, which people are now speculating might be in the game proper. So
yeah,
we do actually see her in one trailer, very, very briefly, in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's her.
That seems like the general consensus that it's probably her, which is kind of cool if they bring her forward into the game because we could use more female characters. So
yeah, that's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess her name is Iris, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that because I think that there are a lot of people like, is this in the screenshots leading up to it? Is this Kid Noctis? But they look quite
No.
similar. Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I mean, it's
She's actually a bit shorter than he
Oh,
was,
yeah.
so
like at first it was like, no, it couldn't be Noctis, but they have like the same color hair, same kind of clothes. Everyone kind of dresses in black though, so I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I was kind of glad to see more of Gladio that doesn't have to do with Coleman brand products. Because I believe, wasn't it? I can't. They said like one of his hobbies includes collecting Coleman brand products.
Yes,
He needs to get better hobbies.
Yes, he needs a better hobby. When I read that, I was just like, I think that's when the product placement gets taken too far, kind of thing. I don't know.
So I'm glad that he has some sort of character beyond that.
Yeah.
So I guess if you pre-order Final Fantasy 15, there's going to be a bunch of like new skins and stuff for the car.
Yeah, which all of them haven't been announced outside of Japan yet, so we can't really say for sure which of them we'll be getting yet, but I know we probably won't get a specific one that's been shown.
One thing I noticed is that like for a lot of pre-order content, and they started kind of doing this around the time of Lightning Returns, they had like an exclusive like either costume skin or something like for 15 different retailers. So if you like
Yeah,
pre-order from each one, like you could get like a specific one, and it seems like they've changed that when they bring it over. Like they don't, they have some stuff like GameStop, Amazon, and Best Buy are seem to be the only three that'll get like exclusive stuff, but nothing as crazy as like 15 different retailers.
yeah, the way Japan does it is a little excessive. It's like, okay, well, that kind of is really unfortunate for fans who, really want this content, but they do release a lot of it later. You just have to pay for it.
Right.
So there's like weapons from other Final Fantasies in there. Looks like there's Final Fantasy IX's Mage Masher, Final Fantasy XII's Gaibolg.
And everyone's favorite.
No, not 12. It's 14s.
It's 14's actually the Dragoon Relic.
Did I say 12?
The old 2.0 relic for Dragoon.
Yeah.
Wow. 14. What am I talking about?
And of course the goddess's
no,
Blaze Edge.
Mhm.
Stop.
Well, they're just
All
hinting her
hail the
cameo.
goddess.
It's gonna happen.
That's probably like the only cameo she's gonna get in that game.
Hopefully not. Give me a car skin with like...
No. No.
You don't like that Cindy car skin, by the way?
No, man.
That is
like I
definitely taking it too far.
know a little bit. It's
I
a little
feel
tacky.
like they looked at the feedback. They looked at the feedback for her character and they were like, well, these people don't know what they're talking about, so we're just gonna go like one extra step further.
I don't know. It looks pretty cheeseball to me. Like I know what they're trying to kind of do to make it kind of like a race car or whatever, kind of like racing style, but it looks really tacky. And I think, as much as I think like the sprites are cool, I think like
I mean, her character is really tacky, so...
a little bit, maybe at best.
Yeah, she's been such a point of contention for a lot of people, and then for them to basically say, yeah, screw it, we'll just shove more of her down your throat is a little bit, I don't understand, but, whatever makes them happy.
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the quote-unquote feedback they took and then shared the results on was sort of them saying, okay, well, this is us trying to make us look like we're doing this, even though we're just going to keep doing what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I was looking at this like Lucis Kingdom suit too. Like, it looks really good, but I'm kind of wondering if like, the other characters will get like suits too or some sort of costume change.
Well, they won't get that outfit, is from what we've been told. So
Hmm. No one rolling around in the dirt in fancy suits.
I always did kind of hope that they'll let you buy outfits for the characters so they're not all wearing black the entire game, but I kind of don't think that'll be the case.
Yeah, I hope that all of it is kind of done in like a better like there's seems like there's a lot of different types of DLC going into this or like pre-order items and whatnot, and I just hope that
yeah, there's a lot, and they're even talking about doing like story DLC stuff. So
yeah, I'm like really looking forward to that, but hopefully they can do it in like 3 quick bursts, like after the end of the game, something episodic rather than maybe something that's maybe 5 minutes long. And
you mean like what was it, like 13.2 had that really sort of random DLC?
yeah, it kind of had like they're about, I would say it took about half an hour to complete some of them, and some of them had scenario stuff, some of them had like stuff that added content to the battle arena and so on. But I'm really curious to see what they do with like adding on to content after release, other than maybe doing something with the story.
Yeah, I guess they'll probably detail that stuff once the game is out, because right now they're basically trying to finish the main game.
So I kind of want to circle back around to Kingsglaive, which just came out in Japan for theater release. It came out this weekend, and so a lot of people have been talking about it. As far as what you've read, and again, I want to reiterate that we're not gonna talk about spoilers, but we do want to talk about some of the early impressions. Maybe some of the Japanese fans have been pressing upon us. So, what do they think? Is it overall good, overall bad, overall in the middle?
So a lot of the impressions have been pretty positive. I guess one of the main complaints that I've seen is a lot of people don't like the Japanese voice actress for Yuna, or sorry, Luna, because she sounds sort of like this typical kind of damsel in distress, even though she's not supposed to be. And then there's like times where her character is supposed to be, outputting a lot of emotion, and the actress just couldn't do it. So people were complaining about that. And then the other thing that I saw was um, the movie doesn't really like resolve much. It's sort of kind of left open, and because it's essentially the beginning of the game, right?
Hmm.
So if you're going into it expecting like a resolution or something, that's not going to be there.
So, I guess I have to ask this question, but do you think that fans will need to play Kingsglaive before they should jump into Final Fantasy 15, or do you think that they could just go in raw and
Well, that's actually another thing that people keep saying. From what I read, is they're like, yeah, like I feel like you really should watch the movie before playing the game. And even people like Sakaguchi, who went and saw the movie, said, yeah, you really should watch the movie first. And in the past, the director Tabata, he said, no, you don't need to watch the movie to understand the story in the game. But more recently, he actually came out and said that, yeah, you should probably watch it first just to get the whole picture. So it sounds like it's pretty important. And then if you remember last year, they talked about having to actually cut this stuff from the game because it was to serve as the original opening to the game. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty important.
So I want to touch on something too because I noticed it a lot in my feed this week. But it seems like a lot of people are saying that Versus 13 stuff has been repurposed for this movie.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said about it being the original opening. So a lot of the stuff that we saw of 15 back when it was Versus and even back in 2013, that was actually from the beginning of the game. So that's when like the invasion takes place and everything. So a lot of that stuff was, basically what people were captivated by for Versus. So they've taken some of that stuff and they've kind of retooled it for the movie.
So when we were talking before we started the show, Erren, you brought up something kind of interesting that I wanted to talk about. And that was the style of Kingsglaive being something a bit different than some of the other stuff in the universe. Do you think that a lot of people do you think a lot of people are looking at Kingsglaive and saying, "Hey, this looks way too Western," or "This looks like it doesn't fit with the game," or my expectations of what
Yeah,
Final
I mean, I've
Fantasy
been
is?
seeing it quite a bit from people, and I mean, even I thought the same thing because a lot of the characters in the movie look completely different than in the game, and vice versa. And so for the movie, what they did was they actually took real life actors and like repurposed their look to be in the movie. And obviously, they didn't do that in the game, so there's kind of this artistic disconnect between the two because of it. And I don't know if it's because they wanted to appeal more toward like a Western fan base with the movie, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that they sort of removed a lot of the Japanese aesthetic for the movie to sort of like be like, hey, maybe you guys should watch the movie and then you can get interested in actually playing the game. I don't know.
Well, I think that a lot of the CG in Kingsglaive looks absolutely amazing, and people were saying, "Hey, like the trailers don't do it justice. Like seeing it on the big screen, like really makes it look good and even better." And right, like some of the mocap that they do for the faces, it looks like they took that and that's kind of like the focal point of like why these characters look the way they do. And so like I
Yeah,
understand
exactly.
like
So what they did
why.
was they had like instead of original character designs, I guess they took these actors and they designed around them pretty much.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm okay with a little bit of dissonance there because, if they can make it look amazing and the characters look somewhat similar, then that's all good. I mean, ultimately you have to if they felt like that was the route that Visual Works wanted to go down to make it a more realistic experience because that seems to be kind of something that they've really kind of honed over the last few years. I really think that in the last 5 years, Visual Works has really kind of up their game as far as how their visuals look. And now I'd actually say they're probably the best in the industry again. Like as far as video game related cinematics go. Um,
I mean, they're up there for sure, but I can see the argument where there's like this, there's this sort of dissonance between the movie and the game, just in terms of style and everything. So it just like if you played the game and then watched the movie in that order, you might be like, well, this looks way different than what I expected.
so when are we going to be able to see this movie?
It's supposed to be coming to the U.S. on August 19th, but like I said earlier, they've yet to announce any sort of what theaters they're going to get it and the ticketing information and that sort of thing.
So it sounds like, if you don't live near one of these big cities like New York or LA, it's going to be pretty much impossible to watch this thing.
I don't know about that because, for example, the theater by me actually tends to get a lot of that sort of stuff, like the limited releases, and I live in the Midwest, so I mean, you never know.
Hmm. Well, I guess I don't know. I couldn't see myself driving 1,000 miles to catch a movie, but
No, I don't think it'll be that limited. And if it is, then yeah, then that's probably not too good of a thing. But you know.
Well, that is what I'm most interested in to see, like, how widespread the movie's going to be in the US. I can't see it being, like, super common all over the place. But who knows?
No, probably not. But I think it'll be in more than just like a couple places.
so Brotherhood, Kingsglaive, and what do we have? We have Justice Monsters, which I guess is still coming out this summer sometime.
Yeah, they actually delayed it until August, late August. They didn't give an exact date, but yeah, and that's for iOS and Android. They actually delayed it further on Windows.
Man.
Oh yeah, the Windows 10 version. So any final thoughts about like this
Yeah,
Final Fantasy 15 universe stuff that's going on? I mean, like, I know that they've kind of released a kind of a universe vid, and I kind of had to laugh because it feels kind of like, hey, this is like our new World of the Versus epic kind of deal.
Well, sort of. It actually reminded me more of like compilation of Final Fantasy VII.
So yeah, because we've got a game, a movie, a mobile game.
Yeah, and you know,
and
for
an anime.
Final Fantasy VII, they had a game, a movie, an anime, and a couple mobile games, and then you know they added some more games.
Well, the only
And,
difference right now is what we need a crappy third-person shoot. Wait a second.
Oh boy.
Damn you, Prompto.
So Prompto spinoff confirmed.
They got that whole VR thing, man, with Prompto.
Oh yeah, that's true. I actually got to play that at E3.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Well, you know, it wasn't bad actually. It's basically kind of like if you've ever played Time Crisis, it's kind of like an arcade shooter, and you can push a button and you can move around. I mean, it's not super involved or anything. And my favorite part of that demo was actually at the end where you're in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that I liked it, not because of that, I know what you're thinking, but not because of that, but because like it had the 360-degree like head tracking where you could look around the car, and they had the Final Fantasy theme playing. So that was cool. But yeah, it was alright. I mean, I didn't get sick from it like I did Resident Evil VR, so that's definitely a positive.
That'd be pretty cool. Like if you could strap on a VR headset as you're driving around, like have maybe the autopilot feature that they have for the car, like drive you around the world or whatever, and you could strap on that VR headset and just kind of sit back and relax.
Yeah, I mean that's basically what the end of the demo was. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's cool, you know, something different.
So I guess you can listen to like a whole bunch of different Final Fantasy series music in that car too.
Yeah, they haven't really, I don't think they've really said how many different songs they're going to be putting in there, but definitely going to be different series songs.
If you guys had to pick one
how much
to listen
14 representation we're going to get.
14? Well,
Mm-hmm.
Erren, I already know what song she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, Titan's theme.
Well, that would be actually really amazing as well.
Exactly.
But...
You know what they should add? They should add Crazy Motorcycle from Final Fantasy VII. So if you had to pick one, what would you pick? Like a song from Final Fantasy's vast repertoire? I guess Crazy Motorcycle would be mine, but...
Oh man, they should add... There's so many that they should add, like... the gold saucer theme.
Would that be appropriate for a car? I don't know.
Yeah, why not?
Maybe
Or like opening bombing missions really good. I think, what was it, in one of the trailers they showed, they had the Sunleth Waterscape. That was pretty good.
I was like that track too.
I think maybe any song, you know, in the Final Fantasy series that has like a timer attached to it. I think that would be a good idea. Like hurry faster or something.
Yeah, you know, like the battle themes, boss themes.
It would be nice to hear those in like different arrangements and stuff like that, so you could have like different like almost like genre stations. But I doubt they're gonna go that crazy with a radio in a car.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be anything too fancy. Just like,
That's just too bad.
hey, here's the thing.
Maybe later they'd be like, "Hey, here's like a Final Fantasy VII like DLC pack for the car."
Yeah.
Oh boy, let's not hope that happens.
Enable them.
Actually, like, you know, it was cool when Theater Rhythm did it because, hey, it's a rhythm game. I'm gonna get these song DLCs, but anything else I feel like is really stretching it.
I bought so much music in Theater Rhythm, especially Curtain Call, because it had so much more and like a bunch of side stuff from like a bunch of really old Square Enix franchises, like Live Alive and like Saga Frontier. It was like, what is all this? I didn't know you guys still remembered these games.
Yeah, I think they even added like a track from Mir, which was totally random.
And I bought that right away. So we had another game released just recently. We had Star Ocean 5 come out. And we have Erren reviewing it for the site, and that'll be up sometime soon. Mike Damiani, he reviewed that for Easy Allies, and I played through a good chunk of it. Unfortunately, Galen is the only one that hasn't played it, but I want to give him the opportunity to ask us any questions he may have, maybe reservations. Maybe he's like, I'm on the fence, I don't know if I should get it yet, but
I don't know. I kind of swore off of after 4, so if it's better than 4, then I might give it a try.
I feel like it's better than 4. Like, as soon as I started the tutorial, I was like, okay, I'm already feeling that this is different than 4.
Yeah, I actually thought it's kind of strange because I don't know how many of you guys have played Star Ocean 1 or 2, but to me, it felt like something that came after Star Ocean 1 rather than something that would come after 3 or 4.
Yeah, and that's actually what they aimed for when they were making the game. They wanted to sort of go back to the beginning and, you know, call back to the original titles while still making something new.
In what way? Like gameplay wise, or like story wise, or
both?
Like,
kind
how
of.
is it similar to the older ones? I only played them very briefly.
I remember 4. It was like super anime, just not very good, not very focused, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It was just bad. It was really bad.
I think I played maybe a couple hours at the most. I just hated all of the characters.
Yeah, 5. I feel like 5 really focused more on, I guess, more grounded characters. They're definitely a lot more likable this time.
Oh man, no more Limmel? That's too bad.
No, I mean, honestly, I can't think of one that I really don't like.
So, Michael, who's your favorite Star Ocean character?
Probably the original Captain Kenny from the. I played Star Ocean I played the PSP remakes, the first Departure and second Story or
Second Evolution or something like that.
Yeah, or second Evolution. I played those. That was my that's how I played the first two. But my first exposure was Star Ocean Till the End of Time was my first Star Ocean, and then I played the 2 on PSP, and then I played The Last Hope. I guess I'm a little bit in contrast with you two, I'm gonna guess, because I wasn't really too high on this new one, Integrity and Faithlessness.
Mhm.
I actually thought, while it didn't do anything as bad in terms of the characters, whether it was the design or the writing was as bad as The Last Hope, I just felt I didn't really care about the cast this time around. I didn't feel like there was a lot of character development with any of the characters. Like, no one really undergoes any sort of real change. And I felt like who they were at the beginning is pretty much who they were at the end. What else? I thought the writing was kind of bland. It wasn't like I don't want to say offensive. It wasn't too anime and cringe inducing as The Last Hope, but it, like, a lot of the personal action stuff didn't really make me chuckle as much as maybe like the Tales. I know Tales is very hit or miss with their skits. Some of them are really bad, but some of them can actually be kind of funny. And I actually do have caught myself laughing out loud at Tales skits. Nothing like that. Same thing with any of the Star Ocean personal actions. I've never really found them too terribly amusing. But they also didn't do the greatest job of giving me enough like backstory into the characters. Like, I won't spoil it, but there was a death of a certain character, a non-playable character, but I just didn't care when it happened. I was like, you're just telling me this is like sad, and that there was a certain character who had a certain issue with this person who died, and I was like, you know what, you're just telling me. There was like nothing was said. There was a few backstory mentions, but I don't know, it felt very shallow, and it kind of tied into my whole problem, Mike, with the game, is that this felt like a much shorter RPG experience than what you're probably accustomed to. I think it took 20 hours or 21 hours to finish the game.
Yeah,
and
it was like surprisingly short.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to rush through it or anything. I just finished it. I was like, I think the story is very simple and straightforward. So it has that going for it. It's not convoluted. There's no weird, crazy shit going on by JRPG standards. It's pretty basic. And you don't actually travel to other planets in this game. There's the sci-fi element with the ships and star bases and stuff, but it was very light on the so-called Star Ocean mentality. Like when in 3 and 4, you got to travel to other planets, and this one you're kind of like stuck here and you go into space. I was kind of like, oh man, I kind of like that about 4, going to different planets. And they did cut down the dungeon length. Like, the dungeons aren't totally like they're not time sinks anymore. You don't spend hours in them. You spend maybe an hour at most in a dungeon. That was pretty nice. But on the whole, I don't know. Like, I want other people to talk about the combat system. I found it extremely underwhelming. I'll go into depth after everyone else says what they think about the combat system so far.
Well, as far as combat goes, I think there's a little bit of depth that's been lost to it. Like, I'm someone who enjoyed trying to figure out how to juggle enemies endlessly in Star Ocean 3 with like Fate and Maria and like I think who was it?
Maria's so
Adere.
broken.
Oh, I know, she's so broken. But this time, I guess like the biggest problem that I kept running into with the battle system is that I played a lot of ranged characters. Like, I play a lot of Mickey and I play a lot of Emerson, and they're both ranged characters. The problem is that the game constantly makes you play as Fidel. So when you're running around field maps, it'll basically switch back and forth to your selected character and Fidel. So if I'm playing as Mickey, what'll happen is I'll be running around as Fidel Castro, and what'll happen is I'll enter a battle, and I'll switch to Mickey, and it'll switch way back because she's way far behind, because she's kind of, the game AI has her way in the back, or Emerson has him way in the back. And what'll happen is that the escape timer, because at the edge of each arena there's kind of like an escape barrier limit or whatever it is it'll switch back to the ranged character, and the escape timer will fill up. And what'll happen is it'll automatically put you in an escape mode, and it's kind of really frustrating that it makes you switch back and forth because not only is it disorienting, but I'll get into a battle I want to fight, but then the camera and the perspective will go all haywire, and I'll end up fleeing the battle when I didn't want to. Did that happen to you guys a lot, or?
I didn't really have that issue, and while I did play as other characters in battle, I never tried to start off as someone else. I'm not entirely sure if you can set someone else as your leader, and by default, when you go into battle, I know there's a seamless transition. So I'm trying to remember if there's a way to control anyone else besides Fidel on the overworld map. I think I remember trying to do it, and I couldn't figure out a way, because you can do that in the Tales series, the Tales of. You can totally set your party leader. You set an active party leader, but you also have someone who's running on the map be a different character as well. So you could be like running around as, I'm forgetting names right now, but you could be running around as like character A, but then character B is your party leader. So when you enter a battle, you go right to character B. So I'm not sure. I don't know if Erren figured out a way or if she had that issue at all.
No, I don't think I did.
Yeah, it doesn't show up in the video footage that I have much, but
I believe you. Yeah, like if you go to the edge, that's the escape barrier. It'll trigger your character to start acting like it's trying to run away, and it'll start the escape countdown. So I could see that being frustrating.
I did get that, like, because I played Emerson a lot, so like he'd already be at the edge, and then the escape thing would be counting down, and I'm like, no.
Oh. So I do see a lot of people trying to play as Emerson. One thing I did see is that, like in all of these games, in Star Ocean and Tales games, part of the concept that I like about the actual gameplay and the job system and the skill system is that eventually, through the game, usually around halfway or further into the game, you figure out a list of skills that you can activate, and you can basically make your character overpowered, or a certain character overpowered. And essentially, Emerson in this game, using a certain set of skills, including the Berserker skill, I believe, you can turn Emerson into a glass cannon and essentially wreck like fights.
He's really overpowered.
So he's like Star Ocean 5's Maria then.
But did either of you have any trouble? I didn't encounter this issue other than the AI would do this a lot, but I noticed other people who were playing who tried to manually avoid this issue but still ran into it. Your ranged characters running in or being positioned too close to, in a boss encounter specifically, being too close to the boss so that they're not actually fighting from a range distance and they get caught in the close range AoEs.
Yeah, I had that problem. Then they would die. they would be like the first to die, and it would get really frustrating. And not as frustrating as probably my most hated part of the game, actually, the protect and segments.
Oh god,
those are
so
those
many of them, and they're so awful. What were they thinking?
She dies.
I just had a bad time on the first one. I just because I was dumb and didn't pay attention, and I didn't see the red text flashing saying protect Anne. So the first two times I got a game over, I'm like, why am I dying because one character died? I'm like, well, maybe I need to protect them. And then like I spent like the next 3 attempts trying to like retool my character skills and roles to basically try and make her a tank and make everyone else. And I try to make like one healer just be like gung ho, like fast healing. And then I just settled for exploiting the rush gauge, which I want to talk about the rush gauge in a second. But let me finish this. I just used the rush gauge to instantly kill every enemy on screen with like Fidel's one with the laser zap and explosion. I was like, oh, they're all dead. I solved that. So it was either a headache if you try to do it normally and you weren't over leveled, or a breeze if you exploited the rush gauge if you had it filled up. But I didn't have a problem with the remainder of them. I heard the desert one was really bad, but I did not have trouble with any of the future Protect and ones. So it was just that first one that pissed me off.
Really bad.
I came over to that 3 times today.
Yeah, I was really really angry about that one. But the one that was after that, when you're actually in the base, in the research facility or whatever, that one was fine because you could like hide back in the room with her.
Yeah, exactly. I think they were like, let's give you a break on this one. It was just because I spent so much time buffing up, and I gave her all like the defensive jobs and roles, and then gave her a bunch of gear and augmented it with like defensive buffs that I just left it on her. That from that point on, she really didn't have a problem. I basically made her like the tank and made Fidel like the offensive powerhouse in my party. But anyway, all these points are pretty good in hearing these different kind of like sides. My biggest problem is the combat system kind of heavily relies on the rush gauge, which was in the Last Hope, but it works a little differently. You fill it up by doing correct actions, but in the Last Hope you had different beats or styles, and by performing certain actions like the counterattack, I forget what it was called or whatever, or doing certain things. Blindside, thank you. By doing that or other things, you powered up those crystals, and that was like really cool. And like, it's the same thing. Like you can power up like how much experience you get from the fight, how much your like limit break attack will basically do if you decide to expend your meter. And this one, it's a rock paper scissors system. Basically, if someone's going to use a heavy attack on you, you break it with a weak attack, it charges you up. If you block to guard a regular attack, you get powered up, and if you counter an attack, you basically get powered up. So if you do the right defensive or offensive action against an enemy's move, you basically charge it up. But if the enemy does like a guard break where they hit you and break you out of your guard, like the gauge shatters and you lose a bunch of meter. My issue is this: early on, it's pretty easy to work within that system. About 2 to 3 hours into the game, when you get into like the first boss battle and then thereafter, it's virtually impossible to really do that system correctly unless you're just like bullshit guessing and stuff. Like, especially if you're playing as any of the melee characters like Fidel, it's just too chaotic. It just didn't. I was like, screw this, and all I did is basically I would give each character their most powerful moves, and I would basically just like chain the most powerful move over and over again on regular enemy battles, which would keep them in hit stun. I would just spam that over and over again. I'm like, there's no incentive to fight any other way than to cheese this shit right now. And then on boss battles, it was basically, let me play a ranged person, kite the boss around if I got aggro, or if not, just stay safe, and then just cheese it from afar. I was like, man, like, this seems a little half-baked, in my opinion.
Like, the way that you're describing it is actually the exact same things that I did when I was playing.
Like, the final boss battle, not spoiling what it is, I just went to Mickey, and I was healer with her. I just ran around the edge of the arena for 45 minutes. They're occasionally casting a heal, and the boss just slowly followed me around the arena, trying to attack me, and I could just block any of its range attacks because they weren't damaging. And I just grinded it for 45 minutes, and War of Attrition I won. No challenge whatsoever. And to anyone who's going to play in a harder difficulty setting, there are only 2 difficulty settings available, and I picked the harder one. That's how stupidly easy the game can be, and they don't let you have the harder difficulty settings. So, yeah, I mean, there's 1 or 2 points where the regular enemy battles spike, but just use exploit stuff again within the combat system, and you'll just brute force your way through the crap. And it's really disappointing to see that, especially after I felt like Last Hope actually took some bit of skill with the blind side and stuff like that. It felt like there was a little bit more skill involved in the Last Hope's combat system, and definitely way more skill involved in Tails' combat.
Yeah,
I definitely want to echo like the point where the weak attack, strong attack, and guarding. Feels like that rock paper scissors that they set up just really doesn't pay off after a little while. It seems like, and honestly, I did what you did. Is basically I would use the cancel bonus system to get up to 200%, and then use something like what I would do is I would use Earthglaive with Mickey, because not only does it do a lot of damage at 200%, but it'll also knock enemies up into the air. And so what I would do is that when it would knock them up into the air, I would use another character to kind of use an an ability that would kind of keep them or bounce them around a little bit. And as long as they're up in the air, that means that they can't be attacking you. And so I guess, there's a little bit, what they set up definitely doesn't pay off with like the whole, rock, paper, scissors stuff, but I did have a bit of fun trying to figure out how to juggle enemies a little bit. I mean, it's nothing as crazy as like Star Ocean 3 where you could like keep enemies juggled for like a solid minute if you use certain skills right. But I don't want to say I didn't like the battle system, but I really do agree with Michael when he says that what they set up really doesn't pay off, and the reserve rush stuff too. Like Fidel, especially if you kill an enemy and he's faced the wrong way, like the bulk of his reserve rush, he what he does is he sprouts angel wings and like shoots a beam out of his face. And
Okay.
if you're faced the wrong way, like if you're faced the wrong way, it's like almost entirely wasted, except for three really big hits at the end.
I did notice that, and definitely wasted it a few times myself because I didn't realize like, oh hey, he has to be facing these guys for doing work.
Yeah, I think I would end up. I'd either use Fidel on regular boss fights just because I literally took, I think, his first two learned special moves. The one where he does like the overhead, like a double, forget what it's called, double impact or double slash or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one where he charges up like an electric discharge and it just like stuns the enemies caught in it. I would literally just keep canceling into each of those to get the cancel bonus with the 200. And then I would like dash back for a second. And I had his like swirl like uppercut range attack and like just lift people into the air, and I was like, this is like ridiculous how cheesy this is. And then I used Fiore for most boss or difficult enemy encounters because how I had ended up having her set up as a mage, basically like the more MP and enemies damage and enemies she killed, like the better it was for her rotation. I was just like, boom, nuke, 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 you're all dead and stuff. And then for anything that seemed like it was just like getting overwhelmed, like too much damage, I would just go to Miki and be, I'm just going to stay back here and heal, and this is going to take 30 or 40 minutes for this boss encounter, but if that's what it takes to win, then so be it. No, this is what happens in a world without enrages. Battles take this long. You find a strategy that wins. Yep, this is what it's like,
That's pretty much true, though.
Only enrages didn't exist. Like 13 had enrages. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
If you took too long on some of the boss battles, it just insta wiped you. That was the biggest bullshit I'd ever seen in my life.
I don't remember that at all.
I
Actually,
don't remember getting enraged in
took
13.
like 40 something minutes on a boss. The one
triple sentinels, man, can't do it.
The bad Sid or something.
Artandalis or something.
The helicopter or plane looking like enemy with his two ads or whatever.
Right.
I was just like winning. I was like, I'm gonna win this. It's gonna take forever, but I figured out a way to do this. Like, I'm just being lazy. And then it casts Doom, and you have like 10 seconds or whatever to finish it, or you die, or a minute or something.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you, it's like an enraged counter. You're like, you're gonna die. And I remember talking to the damn battle designer in a postmortem back at Game Trail. It's just like, who is the one of you that designed the enrage system? I forget what I called it because obviously I hadn't played 14 yet, so I didn't know what the hell an enrage was. But I was like, who's the one who designed that you lose if you take too long? And he like explained why. He said, we're trying to encourage you to learn how to do the fight better. And I'm like, but I was going to win. What's the I figured out a way to win. It's not the best way, but you're gonna punish someone for figuring out a way to win. I was like, that sucks.
Yeah, and like what you're saying with like kiting the enemies around the arena and exploiting the AI, it's like the higher difficulty settings in Star Ocean traditionally, at least in 3 and 4, it's just like they're not going to change that from working. They're going to do more damage. You're going to take more damage. It's just stupid difficulty settings.
So basically, you just grind to get ahead, and then
Oh yeah, that's right. Like I forgot. These single player games aren't like an MMO. They don't introduce new mechanics to these JRPGs. This isn't like I'm trying to think of the last game where difficulty actually added new mechanics in single player. Maybe the
There is
Devil
one
May...
I can think of, but
Well, they change up enemies and stuff in Devil May Cry based on your difficulty setting. I do know
yeah,
that.
that stuff is good. But it's so much easier just to be like, this guy will do 100% more damage, and you'll do 50% less damage. Now it's harder. That's not
Yeah.
difficulty. It's nonsense.
I just want to make sure your levels are high enough.
So do you think that Star Ocean or Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 14 gave you a new respect for maybe an enrage timer? Or do you think that kind of a mechanic is kind of that should stick more with like MMOs or something?
I mean, it would be. I think there's a better way to inform the player that there is a better way to go about fighting, or a better strategy to take in the approach you use on a boss encounter. So whether it could be just like a simple timer that like just shows like your best time. So in Final Fantasy 13, and like, hey, you took 40 minutes to beat this boss. Look at these people who took only like 15 or 20 minutes, and they beat it around the same time as you. So it wasn't like they power level. They could show like levels and stuff. So you could say, oh, that person was just like over level. That's why they killed it fast. Or wow, that person was lower level than me and they beat it faster. What were they doing? I mean, I don't know. Or a ranking system. Like they did have the ranking system in 13 where you took that long on a fight, you're getting like no stars.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's definitely a better way than telling you to you lose essentially. Like, hey, congratulations, you found a way to beat this boss, but just taking a little bit too long, and that's just not what the creators intended. So we're sorry, we have to penalize you. You have to try again, figure out another way. I don't know, especially how long it was into the fight, because I remember being like 30-40 minutes in 13. It's just like at that point, make it shorter. Like in 14 you have like anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes for an enrage usually, and it's like that feels pretty long, but it feels fair. Like you're not wasting 30 to 40 minutes of a fight and then being told, nope, you didn't meet the check. Whereas in this instance, it was just like shitty. It was just like, wow, you're going to make me redo a whole hour. Thanks. Congratulations. And I was winning too.
Yeah, like I remember in Final Fantasy 13 too, like literally right after, because they wanted to kind of keep the enrage, the mechanic itself, because they wanted some way to give you feedback like, hey, you're taking too long. And so what they did actually is they introduced a mechanic called blood damage. And I don't know if you remember this clearly as I do, but basically what would happen is that if you had blood damage, it would basically temporarily decrease your maximum HP, so that if you took too much blood damage as the fight went on, your maximum HP would be reduced to the point where if you tried to heal, it would just be really, really hard to try to persevere, or as you said, like wage a war of attrition where you just constantly peck away damage and try to do that. But this time I think blood damage was kind of an interesting way to get you to play with the paradigm system in a more effective way. Sadly, that was probably one of the only interesting things that 13.2 did with its battle system. Most of it's kind of a holdover from the original, with maybe some QTE aspects added to it. But I don't know, like there's probably got to be some way, some other way of introducing a system like that in a single player RPG. Other than maybe like an enrage timer or blood damage. But at the end of the day, it just seems like there wasn't too much that went into the encounter design itself. Like all of the bosses that I've fought in this game don't really have. Well, I mean, this game has a lot of non-conventional bosses anyway. Like it's more like these sequences, like defend a character, or try to survive as long as you can, or if there is a boss, they're pretty easy to exploit. And as you said before too, like a big problem I ran into is when you have 7 characters running around and like a dozen enemies running around, like that rock paper scissors, it's you can't keep track of what's going on, basically. And so like all of a sudden, like my reserve rush gauge would like shatter and shatter and shatter. And it's like, well, I don't really have control of what's going on here, so okay.
Yeah, no, I think called Enrage in 13. It's some bosses can cast Doom on you, and they are variants of the timers. So like the most notorious one was Barthandelus. The first encounter took, if you didn't beat him in 20 minutes, he cast Doom. I think it was over, yeah, after 20 minutes he'll cast Doom. Says it was after 20 minutes in the second encounter as well. And then the third encounter, yeah, I guess it says it's over 20 minutes. Someone was saying it could take up to an hour on the third encounter with Barthandelus, so I'm not sure.
It's definitely one of those I feel like I beat in a battle of attrition. Just it's been so long, I don't remember anymore.
But yeah, they just cast Doom on you, and then you got to beat the Doom timer. I'm curious because I don't think Galen would know to ask about this, but
what's that?
The camera system when moving around, not the motion blur. I immediately adjust my camera settings for the vertical and horizontal sensitivity to 0 spinning around nonsense, but I'm talking about when you're running up and down, like, inclines and declines, and the camera starts bumping like you're in a car or something, like going over
that's
bumps.
Awful.
And
oh my gosh.
It doesn't seem like it's a problem when you're watching videos of people play, because I was watching my review. I was like, wow, it doesn't seem that bad. But when you're playing it, to me, it was at first nauseating, and later on, even when I adjusted that, it still was annoying as heck.
That sounds super annoying, yeah.
Yeah, I felt like that combined with like the 60 frames a second, it made me feel kind of nauseous in a way, and I usually don't feel that way with 60 frames a second games. It was really off-putting for me at first.
Like, just running up this incline right here that we're on, like, as soon as you hit the top, the camera would like bounce or bump or whatever, like to try and adjust, because it tried to keep like a level. I don't know, it tried to follow you, and it would try and follow at a certain eye level, whereas in 14, wherever you leave your camera, it kind of like stays fixed, even when you're going up and down an incline. So Square Enix obviously knows how to make competent camera systems with very vertical landscapes, with a lot of topography, mountains and shit that you got to climb up. So it's like they couldn't, like, hey, Tri-Ace, just use these camera settings. That's how you handle running up a hill and stuff without making people throw up.
Well, I can't say like I got too motion sick, but there are definitely points where it was kind of like, especially when, how typically in Star Ocean's past you would go to a separate battle arena, but this time, like, since you're fighting battles on the world map, there are a lot of cramped areas sometimes that you'll fight in, and with 7 characters and a ton of enemies, it gets a little bit weird, where I saw myself, hanging back with the ranged character and like totally doing like the AoE nukes, just because I couldn't play as Fidel or like Anne, for example, because there was so much going on that I just needed to like switch to a character that could just, okay, fuck this shit up and let's blast everything from a distance and hope we don't get hit.
Almost sounds like it's like a transitional game between what Star Ocean 4 was and what they may want to turn Star Ocean into. It sounds like there's a lot of like kind of bumps in the road.
Well,
yeah, it's actually I don't know if you played Tales of Zestiria, did the same thing. Where it didn't push you in the battle transition, it just kind of had you enter a battle on the same map. So a lot of the times, like when you were in a narrow area, like in a dungeon, it'd be like, okay, well, I'm kind of like stuck in this corner, and there's all these enemies, and like Tony was saying, sometimes it would just be like, well, I'm gonna switch to a ranged character and hopefully hope for the best.
For as
That's
much
kind of awkward.
for as much problems as there are with the battle system, it's not something that I didn't entirely hate. I just think that it's very, I don't know, it's serviceable in a way, and it's still, I mean, what I like doing is playing around with like the cancel bonuses and trying to just absolutely blow everything up as fast as possible. And there's still some enjoyment in that. And I don't really feel that I am getting bored with it at all. One thing I really do like is actually playing around with the roles and leveling them up and unlocking new ones. Um, and basically the roles are kind of like I wouldn't say that they're jobs, but they're more like they're titles that basically bestow either different AI,
Yeah, it's a very advanced gambit system. It felt
basically.
like, or everyone's played Star Ocean. Anyone who has played Star Ocean or Tales knows you can go into a character setting in those games. Go to focus on only healing. Only use X% of your MP. Never use items. If the limit break
Right.
gauge fills up this much, go ahead and use it. Like it was all these very, it wasn't very. It wasn't the greatest settings, but it pretty much touched all facets of the battle system. But you would hear time and time and again someone say the AI did something I didn't want it to do. Like I had to go over and switch to them to get them to stop doing that. And this was just, I think, I actually liked what they did with this. I did like the job and role system. I did like that you set the AI parameters and unlocked abilities based on the jobs you assigned. And I liked how they unlocked advanced roles that you can then equip. You level them up by having them actively use their stuff in battle, or you could use the skill points to level them up manually, which everyone was saying you should actually avoid doing and use those on the specialties or something. But anyway, yeah, like I felt that was pretty good actually. It's just I wish the rest of the game caught up to that level of both concept and execution.
And as someone who played Star Ocean 1, where they had like a bunch of different specialties, like all of these different side things like blacksmithing, alchemy, harvesting, emotes for some crazy reason. Like there were a ton of different like skills that you could unlock that are somewhat unrelated to battle. You could do that in Star Ocean 1 and kind of level them up as you go. I kind of like that they returned here rather than being extremely tied to like item creation like in 3. So I was kind of happy to see that return. Some of them are more useful than others. Like one is just like a one-off you unlock to basically unlock nodes on a map that you can see. Basically, like you'll be able to see treasure nodes on a map and whatnot. Um, but I've been basically using my points towards specialties mostly. I have been leveling my skills up a bit, my battle skills, but now that Damiani mentioned that, I'm probably not gonna, because I don't know. It does seem like that, since you do gain um, those special points towards those roles manually or automatically, that it's better off unlocking a lot of this stuff, the specialty stuff, so that you can start crafting better gear and better items. And that's one thing that I think Star Ocean, like I wouldn't say that, like if you're coming from Star Ocean 3 into this one, I wouldn't say it's as in depth as Star Ocean 3 yet. I haven't unlocked the synthesis or augmentation yet. Have you guys unlocked that, and what did you think of it? I'm curious now.
So yeah, I unlocked pretty much not everything, but I unlocked those two. I use the augmentation a lot, actually. I said earlier, I actually used it to increase defensive attributes for Anne. I would stack a bunch of the magic and physical defensive stats, the men, whatever they call it for
Mentality.
magic mentality, and then this regular defense. And then I would also stack elemental debuffs or defense buffs. So I basically literally made Anne a tank because she had like +8 to all like the elemental defenses, and then she had like +10 defense, and then +10 men and mentality. And I also augmented her, like I augmented a lot of like the weapons to have like more attack, especially like on Fidel and Emerson. And then I like totally like buffed the intelligence and stats on Mickey and Fiore. The only thing that stunk was I was always paranoid that I would find a new weapon that would by default have better stats than that.
Mhm.
And you augment stuff by using your materials, whether it's healing items, the harvesting stuff, fishing, the stuff from treasure chests, stuff that enemies drop, and not all of it's easy to replace. So you got to go like farm to get the stuff. So I was always paranoid that I was going to augment something with really good stats, and then next dungeon I was going to like it'd be obsolete, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of something I'm looking forward to playing around with, because I remember in Star Ocean 3, I would there was like a modifier that you could add to your weapon to basically have it shoot out balls of light that would augment like your attacks. Like you could attack, and you could have it where like 3 or 4 balls of light would shoot out each time and hit for additional damage. And like what it would do, like if you were trying to juggle something, it would just like keep them forever juggled. I'm gonna try to find a video of it, but yeah, it's kind of crazy some of the stuff you could play around with in Star Ocean 3. You could even add like modifiers that would like I don't know, like even negatively impact you in battle. Like you could synthesize a potion to like hurt you instead.
Yeah, I remember making like botch potions and stuff like that.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember that. I'm just thinking of like Tails, like SP settings you can spend to make like and basically impose restrictions on yourself to make fights harder.
Yeah, that was something I really really enjoyed doing in Star Ocean 3. It was just kind of trying to figure out what combination of skills and item stats would make for like these absolutely broken strategies where you could keep like an enemy juggled for like 30 seconds at least. One thing I wanted to actually bring up about this is that there aren't really many conventional cutscenes anymore. A lot of it take places just right out in the field. Like there's no cutscene transition, and it's kind of interesting how like we expect these big cutscenes out of Japanese RPGs, but this time there's not much by way of that. A lot of it just takes place right as you walk up to something.
It's almost like it's an MMO.
Is that a spoiler, you think? After Star Ocean 3? No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, maybe.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring that up because it goes to what Galen said earlier about, or I'm sorry, Mike said earlier about this game kind of being something like a transitional game where, and I have a video of Maria just absolutely like wrecking crap playing right now on the video, so enjoy that. But yeah, it feels like it's a transitional game where it seems like there's something that they're trying to go for. I don't want to say like it's Western influenced, like they're looking at Western RPGs and what they're doing. Like Western RPGs don't have, typically 30-minute long cutscenes, and a lot of the storytelling happens to take place like right on the world map or guild map or whatever. So it was kind of interesting to see that happen. I'm kind of wondering if Final Fantasy 15 is also kind of going down this route where there will be less conventional cutscenes and more like, party banter or stuff that just happens, like impromptu. And I kind of think maybe that's where we're going.
I think that one of the main reasons that maybe Star Ocean 5 didn't have a lot of traditional cutscenes was you could definitely tell they didn't have a lot of budget for the game. Mostly in just a lot of the backtracking that you have to do, going through a lot of the same areas, and just the overall length of the game and variety of the game. You could definitely tell that, unfortunately, they probably didn't have a very big budget and they just worked with what they had.
Yeah, I feel that was pretty much what was going down, was that they didn't have either a lot of time and or budget on this game.
Keep in mind this game released on PlayStation 3 in Japan, and part of me thinks that when Square and Tri saw that the PS4 was selling pretty well, that maybe they rescued it from the rubbish bin, perhaps.
Yeah, well, that, and they're kind of on this new kick lately where they're trying to sort of revive the middle ground games where they're not like super AAA games, but the ones that were just kind of like good games, but not like super high production value stuff, but not to the point where they're like, just basic games.
Basically, they're trying to bring back the middle class. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Which is a lot of what they used to have, like back in the PlayStation 1 and the PS2 era. They released a lot of games, and then last generation they didn't. So it's kind of them like trying to catch up to what they used to do.
You heard it here first. Hashtag make JRPGs great again.
Oh my god.
I'm glad someone's at least trying.
Get that trending, everyone.
Yeah,
I really hope it works out for him because obviously we want to keep seeing more of these, and a lot of the reviews for Star Ocean 5 weren't so hot, but a lot of the actual player perspective and player impressions have been pretty positive. So hopefully they look more at that and not at the this reviewed bad, so maybe we should stop making these type of games sort of thing.
They just need to. Trace needs to just say so long, Square Enix. Sega needs to get their act together and needs to make Residents of Fate 2 happen, whatever the cost.
Oh, yeah, that would actually be really good, really amazing. That game I feel is super underrated.
I kind of think it was a little bit overrated. Dun dun dun. I don't know. I got bored a couple hours in, maybe about a dozen hours in or so. I felt like it didn't really do much to add new combat mechanics, and I felt like I could kind of cheese the same stuff over and over and over again. Like I liked the concept of it, and it was original.
You mean
I don't know. I liked everything about it. Like the setting, I thought was cool. The characters were all right. The battle system was like really interesting, but it kind of felt like maybe after 10 hours or so that I felt like I had seen or done everything, and I don't know. I think I haven't put more than 10 or 15 hours into that game. I might pick it up. I might try it again sometime soon, but I don't know.
I feel that's kind of like Trice's thing, though.
But you beat Star Ocean 5.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that say to you?
I mean, I enjoyed it enough to go all the way through, so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I know we've been talking a lot about like what we didn't like about it, but I feel like I do like Star Ocean 5. It doesn't quite hit some of the notes that I think 3 hit for me, but I really liked it a lot more than 4. Well, hell, I didn't even finish 4, so I mean, that goes to say...
I actually did not finish 4 either. I think I got to the part where Edge, the main character, gets like really depressed because he did something, and after that I was just like, I don't really feel like playing this game anymore.
So yeah, Star Ocean 5, you have nothing good to say about 4.
4 drove me crazy because I tried to get all the achievements in it on 360,
my god.
And I got halfway and gave up because battle trophies are just, it's not worth my time. I tried so hard, but I finished it, did all the end game crap.
Wow, you have more patience than I do.
Well, I enjoyed it, but looking back on it, not super fondly. So that's why I just kind of wasn't super excited for Star Ocean 5. But now I kind of want to pick it up because if it sounds like it's kind of a shorter game, kind of like a different spin on things, might be fun.
Yeah, so. Well, I think one thing that I can say about 4 that I thought was a good idea, maybe not so much in execution, but like being able to go to the different planets and stuff, that was cool because I think it was sort of a new thing for Star Ocean where you could go to more than just like 1 or 2 places.
Yeah, when I heard this game had 20 hours or so to the story, I was kind of like, oh boy, here come the comments. But on the side, I was kind of like, oh thank God, like
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't mind shorter stories as long as they're more focused, and I feel like once you start getting up in that 40 to 50 hour range, your game's probably going to start to drag out a little bit. There's going to be some filler in there that might not be so fun. I feel like,
Yeah.
for example, Final Fantasy 13 suffered from this because, like, you spend, I don't know, what was it, like 30 hours just getting to the like open area, and then you spend, I think I spent like another 10 hours like just around that area, and then there was still like 10 more hours of the game to go, and I was just like, well, I guess I'll keep going.
See, what I thought was okay with 13 was like as you went through it, they unlocked more and more things for you to do in the battles, different all those different jobs to level up and all that crap for the different guys. So that was okay. Like what I'm worried about when you're talking about like 20 hours versus 40, 50 hours, that's my biggest thing with 15 that I'm worried about is like that gameplay. If it's the same for 50 hours, I just don't know if I can do that for 50 hours in a game.
Yeah,
I
I
just don't know.
feel that way as well. I feel like, and they haven't really shown anything that says that it's going to be like, I don't know, like how it's going to evolve throughout the game. They haven't really said anything or shown anything, so we're kind of just left thinking like, okay, this can be it. So I guess it's hard to tell right now, and we'll have to see when the game comes out. But I really hope they kind of change things up a little bit.
I hope so. I know you can change like the weapons up, and there's gonna be like probably a big, nice collection of weapons. I don't know if they kept the knight swords that were in the original Duskai demo, but all that kind of stuff could add new wrinkles to the battle system as you go on to make it not super boring by the time you're like 30, 40 hours into it.
it does seem that there's some sort of magic synthesis system where you can like take a spell and add some modifiers to it. Like, and we've only seen very, very, very little of this, but in the menu, I think this was like some footage during E3 or whatever, but
Hmm.
you could take a spell like Fyra and you could add like healing modifiers to it. Like if you use it, it'll heal you a bit.
See, that's kind of cool. That I can see, like, kind of making it more interesting as you continue on.
They've really, really been mum on like a lot of like the growth details, like abilities, magic, like how you actually get stronger other than, collecting weapons or leveling up.
And eating food, yeah. But like, because they've been so mum on it, like you said, that's my biggest reservation, and that's when I think we can start talking about like, you know, you say Star Ocean's like 20, 25 hours, and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. That sounds perfect. Exactly what I want as an older person doesn't have like 100 hours to sink into a game. And now I'm worried about 15 just being too long. I don't think I would have felt like that like 10 years ago, but here we are.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's like, well, I've got other things that I've got to worry about these days, and like with Star Ocean 5, actually, if you do pretty much absolutely everything, like all the quests and everything, it's actually it's closer to 30 hours, and then there's an extra dungeon. But I mean, even then, that's not like a huge amount of time.
No. I was easily
I
maybe double and a half that.
I don't
before.
know. I don't know if any of you guys have done research into it, but I'm kind of wondering now, like in Star Ocean 3, is the level cap 255? Because I'm curious now. I don't know if I'll
In
test it out for science,
5,
but in 5, yeah.
it's 200.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's still a crazy high levels. I think I'm maybe halfway
Yeah.
through the game, and I'm at like level 50 or so. I've done some side stuff, and I'm at the point in the game I just got to the facility where you know that part where you protect Anne in the desert. Well, I'm just right
Oh
beyond
my
there.
god.
So how far in the
Okay,
game am
so
I?
there's actually uh that's about halfway actually. I think if I'm remembering correctly. There's actually another Protect Anne segment coming up like right away, so I hope you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm ready. I've had too many game overs to prove it.
Well, the one you're coming up on is a little more forgiving, so just like stay back next to her and you should be okay.
So yeah, Star Ocean 5, a lot of mixed reviews, but I'm liking it so far. I'm enjoying it so far, actually, I would say. Does it deserve all of the negative hype that it got? I don't think so. I think that people complaining about it not being as long as other RPGs, I don't know, maybe there's something to that, but at the same time, it's like, kind of glad that this is 20 hours long because we've got Setsuna coming up next month, and I'm going to be reviewing that for the site. That's another I would probably say 20 to 25-hour game like Chrono Trigger or I guess Star Ocean 5. But then we have September rolling around with Final Fantasy 15. That's going to be 40 hours at least. But then all of the post game stuff probably end up spending 200 hours in it. But the following month we have World of Final Fantasy, which they're saying is got 100 hours worth of content in it.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. And when I read that, I was like, wow.
So
I mean, and that's not even counting like we're probably going to get Final Fantasy 14 patch 3.4 sometime in between there as well. So there's that.
New raid tier, hooray!
New raid tier.
Goodbye
Plus,
life.
I think Dragon Quest Builders also comes out in October.
Mm-hmm.
And Deus Ex in August.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god! It's gonna be there's something like at least every month. The rest of the year we have so much.
It's basically every month except for November, I think, for them. Because in December there's Kingdom Hearts 2.8, and they still have to date Tomb Raider for PS4, which a lot of people are thinking is going to be November, but they haven't said anything yet.
And then early 2017, we have Final Fantasy 12 and Nier Automata. So yeah, games.
If last year was the year of dreams, then this year is like the year of releases.
The year of no free time, RIP, social life, get good scrub.
Have like 3 different monitors with 3 different games up at the same time.
Then have Final Fantasy 14 4.0 come out probably in May or April or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, FanFest, October, we'll find out.
It's okay. All these games come out now, so that when 7 episode 1 comes out, there's nothing else to do, so I can just play that for the rest of my life. Well, it's episode 2.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't know. Probably. When do we think we'll get that? I have no idea. Probably, obviously not this year, but.
People are guessing next year.
No, definitely not this year. I don't know if we'll even get it next year, to be honest. Like, it would have seriously shocked me just because of how quiet they've been, and they've got 2.8 at the end of this year, and they'll probably want to put out 1.5 and 2.5 on PS4 or whatever. So I mean, technically they would have a Kingdom Hearts release next year.
Yeah, technically. No,
but yeah, I don't know.
Waiting so
like
long.
It really depends. I think it really depends on the next time they show it, which they said this winter is when we'll see it again. And I think maybe they might say anything. I don't know. Like, they keep just saying that it's in development and that's it. And fans seem to be okay with it. So yeah.
So what's going on this winter as far as events go where they could show it at? I know that in December we have PlayStation Experience and we have Jump Festa. And I think if you're a betting man, maybe one of those makes more sense than the other.
Yeah, I don't know. It maybe could show up at both. Who knows? Jump Fest is a little later in the month, so I could see it being there.
It seems like Jump Festa kind of goes for like the mid-core or maybe niche titles, though. Would that be fair?
No, actually, I'd say it caters more towards games that
Maybe they've
like
been
have a
announced,
younger
but
audience. No,
they...
it's typically more of like a younger or more like general audience.
Yeah, maybe it'll show up at both, I'm sure. Because, well, I mean, they'll want to do something for, like an American or North American audience, and then they'll want to go home and say, like, hey, like, here's something exclusive for Jump Festa that you can look at, or it seems to,
Maybe
that monthly
maybe
circuit.
they'll do like a special event where they announce the release date.
Oh, like Uncovered?
Yeah.
What would you call the Final Fantasy VII event? What would you call it? Reunion, maybe?
There it is.
Perfect.
I gotta get my black cloak ready for that.
Like all of the
man.
staff, including Nomura, they'll come out on stage with black cloaks.
I'll get branded.
Oh man. See, with that project though, I don't think they'll like let it drag on forever. So we don't have to worry about it having like a big like re-reveal or anything.
I don't know, because like no Nomura project has ever dragged on forever.
So true.
Well, the Kingdom Hearts portable stuff actually came out on decent times.
Well, I'm glad something worked out, because now it's Kingdom Hearts' turn to wait for its like big next title.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta give it to the Kingdom Hearts fans, though. They're always like super positive when any shred of information comes out, and
Yeah,
I feel like whenever they talk about the series, they're not like
they go
clawing
absolutely
at each
nuts.
throat.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like anytime something new comes out, like Kingdom Hearts fans just go absolutely nuts about it, and like the coolest thing to watch because, well, I mean, it's kind of funny now because a lot of them they got into the series when maybe they were like 12 or 13, and now it's like how many years has it been since Kingdom Hearts 1? Like, what was that, 2002?
I think it was 02.
Yeah. 2002.
So 14 years. So like if you're 12 playing that, you're 26 now. And some of these people, like they may be 26 now, but when they hear new info, it's like they're 12 again.
Don't worry, Sora's still like 16, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's true.
So, since we're in Eorzea, we're in Final Fantasy XIV right now, we do want to talk a bit about patch 3.3 and new piece of content that's... Sorry, 3.3?
3.35.
Oh, 3.35.
We're already in 3.3.
Oh, I know. We have... Did I say coming up, or... I'll forget what I said it all.
No.
I don't even know.
3.35's got a new piece of content coming called the Deep Dungeon. And it's going to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's coming out next week.
Really? Next week? Wait, are you sure?
Yep, next Tuesday,
yeah,
the 19th.
July 19th.
Wow, that's coming up so fast. And then we have Setsuna like the day before. Great. Awesome.
The exact same day, actually, I think.
July 19th.
It is on Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesdays are when North America releases.
Yep, usually.
Well, I'm going to have to figure out something time-wise, because...
Yeah, like I feel like they always do this. They keep releasing patches on days where other things are going on, and it's like, well, what am I going to do?
But I'm gonna
Luckily,
be so in that deep
3.35 looks a
dungeon.
little bit light, so
Yeah.
aside from the new dungeon.
So what exactly is deep dungeon? And I know what it is, but for our curious audience, if you guys had a convenient way to describe it, what would you call it?
It's like a game within the game of 14, where it's like its own little sprawling dungeon with like randomized floors. I think they're putting 50 into 3.35.
Yep.
It has its own like separate leveling system apart from your actual level outside of the dungeon. It has its own like kind of like gear sets, its own little new interface, which is a nice throwback to old Final Fantasies. It looks very, very promising, and it has its own like special story and stuff that maybe ties into some characters we've seen before in other content.
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to see more of the story, or surrounding some of these characters that we've seen in Hem.
Yeah,
Deep Craft
who
Hard.
knows what's next?
I saw that, and they had teased before that certain character would maybe come back again.
I hope that she hasn't gotten ahead of herself. Anyway, that's coming out July 9th.
Anyway.
You're welcome, audience. So yeah, other than that though, how's like the rating life going in Final Fantasy 14 now, Erren? You've been putting a lot of practice into
See, this, I feel like I kind of wanted to say something during the Enrage Timer discussion, but I feel like they should just remove the Enrage Timer on Brute Justice, and then all would be right with the world.
Would it?
Well, okay, remove that, and then maybe some of the like insta wipe mechanics, because yeah.
I mean,
I don't
the end of that fight is great for people who don't know, because the boss just spins around in circles, covered in flames, and just does raid damage to you every couple seconds until you eventually die. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's almost like a soft enrage, that ability actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like the whole situation with the current raid scene in Final Fantasy 14 is, I feel like we're at the point where people just, like as a whole, don't have a lot of motivation anymore. Like people
everyone
were able
who really wants to beat it has beaten it, or
well, there's that, and like getting through the first 3 stages were actually fairly painless for the most part, even though like Alexander 6 Savage was kind of wonky for a little bit, but like as soon as people got to Brute Justice, I don't know, there's just like people don't care, and that seems to be the problem lately. There's so many people that I've talked to who have been like, yeah, like so many people have been on breaks and vacations, and every time we do get together, yeah, I mean that is true, but I mean just in general, it just feels like even when we're in there, people are just like, we're here.
Here we are again with the same
right,
song and dance.
Like I feel like people are looking at it like, this takes a lot of time. We're gonna have to put a lot of time into this, and that's like really making them not want to do it. Because, for example, in Coil, I feel like there never was that sort of situation. You
I don't know about that.
People weren't spending. Okay, well,
come on, like T4, you remember that struggle.
T4 was a struggle, but it wasn't a struggle for the whole server.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Like
whereas
maybe Twintania.
Like, I'd say even T5 is a lot easier than anything in like A4S or A8S. maybe not easier, but more forgiving, I guess is the right way to say it, because I feel like 8 is so unforgiving, and that's part of what's killing people's motivations. Like, one of my friends who's not in my group was like super super all into the raid when it first came out. Like, they were going like every single day, and they got through the first 3 floors like super fast, and they got to the last one, and they just they still haven't beat it. So yeah, kind of in the same situation.
Do you think it's a matter of just maybe like we need to take some time and like reassess our strategy, or is it just like people are hitting their heads against the wall over and over and over again that maybe it's not so much that they've exhausted different strategies, it's that they've exhausted really their will to.
I think it's really the willpower thing, because you have to think a lot of people that are doing the raid, they're around our age. They probably have a job or other things that they have to do during the week, and getting together for multiple hours to practice these fights is just, it's not very viable when you take a step back and look at it. You, with Coil, for example, like Final Coil, I thought was perfect. People cleared through that fairly quickly, and they were happy being able to farm it for however many months. But with Alexander, it's just like, at this point, it's like, okay, well, 3.4 is coming up really soon, and we're still trying to get this done, and that's not where a lot of people want to be.
Well, I'm gonna get up on a Final Fantasy 14 soapbox right now and say I kind of disagree with some of that, because like it always happens on fights where there's a lot of personal responsibility for each player to kind of do their own thing and take care of their own things they got to take care of. It always seems to be where things fall apart, because in every group, it doesn't matter what game it is. It could be WoW. I'm sure everyone who's played WoW, played rated any game knows there's weak links, and in A8, it's way better designed than A4 is. A8 Savage is probably one of the best designed fights in the entire game that they put together, because there's a lot of personal responsibility and a lot of group synergy that goes into that game, into that fight. And if people don't bring their A game, kind of like what you're saying, Erren, if you don't bring your A game, you're not going to get anywhere in that fight. And that's the thing. Like, you can't expect a cakewalk in this fight, but like, since our kind of vacations kind of ended for my group, although our main tank is away this week, which kind of puts a damper on our progress. Once vacations kind of ended, a lot of progress was getting made, but people have to. You have to give a shit about the fight to get into it, but it's more like you have to understand the mechanics, and you gotta work together, as opposed to always like just go in there, get your loot, and get out. You gotta always do your best in a Savage, and like. I don't think it's nearly as soul crushing as A4 Savage was. That fight was just
No,
it
it's not.
wasn't
And
fun. It was awful.
no.
A8 is at least so much fun. It has the great music to it. I can't wait to see Winged Brute Justice. Hopefully next week when we get back to it.
Like, you're definitely right. It is about people bringing their A game, but that's part of the problem. Like,
For sure, yeah.
if 1 or 2 people out of your group of 8 is just not feeling it, it brings down the entire group, and it's really hard to make progress when one person is just messing around or not taking things seriously. And I know, like, my group has definitely had that situation. It's like, we talk to the person and they're like, well, yeah, I want to be in there, but then the attitude that they bring in is definitely not the attitude that they say that they want to bring in. So it's super frustrating. And
Definitely.
like, as soon as we got there, this person was also like, oh, I don't know about this fight. And it's like, well, if you bring that kind of attitude in, then we're never going to make progress. So
that's true. It's true. Just one person, is not pulling their weight. It's not, running the same way in the hamster wheel, and everything's gonna fall apart. Which it probably makes it a very frustrating fight because like you are dealing, like you said, with 7 other human beings who have other things going on in their lives that aren't just Final Fantasy 14 robots as much as we wish they could be at times.
Yeah, well, it is that. Plus, like you said, like with Coil, I feel like they made it so it was a little more forgiving, and that you could have maybe only a couple people have to worry about the responsibilities. But once they started putting the responsibility on every single player, then things got a little rough.
Yeah, and I guess you could say like the punishment for dying, you get like that permanent like damage up stack on bosses. It's kind of killing a lot of people because
there's
makes
that.
the margin for error
There's
none.
that, and there's like even earlier in the fight where like one person messes up and you get like the instant like
Swords of Revealing Light, my favorite wipe mechanic in the entire game.
It's like, or like you're just about ready to kill the phase 2 and like somebody messes up the lightning pass.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's
so
why it's very important to get your job done the right way. Like a couple times I missed that enumeration at the end of like phase 2 or whatever for us, and
yeah, like I said, all it takes is one person not paying attention and you're like instantly punished. So it's just that sort of thing that sort of has been wearing people out, and like I think we're nearing like our 3rd month having cleared 7, so it's been a long time. And when you're stuck on something for that long, like even if you haven't gone in that much, there's still that mentality of, oh, we still haven't beat this yet. And I think that's really starting to grate on people.
I wonder if the thing boils down to at the end. I believe if I'm not mistaken, is around a 12 or 13-minute fight. That's coming on the heels of another 12-minute fight that was 7. And I wonder if just these fights are a little bit too long, because now we're getting enough progress into 8. My group and your group, I'm sure, as well. Where once you wipe to things you haven't seen before, like once you get to the intermissions, especially intermission 2, and then you die to that because you've just seen it for the first time, and you got to do the past 6, 7, 8 minutes of the fight again. It's like that kills you, that drains you pretty quickly.
I think I'd have to say, like, I haven't done like the new Savage stuff, of course, but to me, the most draining fight I felt like I've been through in the game was T9.
Yes, T9 learning T9 was a bear.
T9 was really rough.
I felt like a lot of the mechanics themselves were like back-ended onto the last third of the fight, and learning them and having to deal with like the pressure of, because my group kind of fell apart at my first, I think it was my 2nd or 3rd group at the time kind of fell apart by then. And it wasn't on that turn, but I had a lot of people in the free company bring me into T9, and it was such a struggle to kind of be able to consistently learn that last third, and especially the dive bombs. Like I thought I would have it down, but then like you would be coordinating with different people, and when you have different groups, you kind of have a different dynamic where maybe it'd be incumbent on you to call things out, or maybe someone else would take that up, and most of the times it'd be on you to kind of keep track of your own shit. And that's fine, that's something I can do with enough research. But I felt like getting in there and practicing it, like it was so hard, because then you'd wipe the group if you didn't do it right, especially because I played a tank. Like when you'd wipe the group, number one, you'd feel awful, even though there'd be like no pressure really. Everyone would, everyone's adults, they understand, blah blah blah. But
you still got to do golems again. You still got to do. You still got to do Heavensward again. You still got to do fire in or fire out.
Fire in, fire out, thunder.
Like, I remember getting really bad in the Heavensfall when, like, if you pushed too late. Like
Uh-huh.
on the dragons. Oh my god.
You get the third
So
one. It's like the
frustrating.
clock one that everyone always died to. Yeah.
Yeah, no one knew how to do that one. It was hilarious.
Just go anti-clockwise and you
Yeah, I mean, even with T9, like looking back on T9, I think the group that I used to be in, it took us like maybe 2 months, but that was because we didn't go a lot. Which is actually still less time than it's taken to clear A8S and a lot less time than it took to clear A4S. So I mean, like comparatively, I think I'd rather be learning T9 again.
So, the difference, Tony, now with like a lot of the Alexander Savage raids is they put a lot of the harder mechanics. They really front load the fight with a lot of the more difficult mechanics, especially 8. I think that phase 2 is probably one of the hardest phase. It's probably I'm gonna say the hardest phase in the entire fight of 8 Savage.
Yeah, it is.
Is phase 2
because like one mistake or like one of your tanks dies and that's it. You're done.
It's also very demanding because so they bring the robots back from 6. And you have about 45 seconds to kill one of them, otherwise the raid wipes. And so it's like it's very, while there's still like team mechanics, like you have to stack for certain beams or you gotta bait another attack. So you have all these mechanics going on kind of at the same time, and it's a big time crunch, and you can save a lot of time in the fight in that phase. And you can also lose a lot of time in the fight in that phase. But after that, it gets a little bit easier. So like, well, as opposed to like 3 had a lot of the hard mechanics came at the very end of that fight. Like they built up to it, but it took like 8 minutes to get to actually difficult mechanics, and then you start wiping and you gotta do all the easy stuff again, and those kind of fights really drive people crazy. It's the T9s, it's those that really are annoying. Once you get far into 8 becomes a little bit more manageable, because the second phase is still fun, to me at least, and I'm like a couple of weeks into this now. I'm still enjoying it. But the first phase is terrible.
Yeah, I really
no excuse for that one.
The oppressor is awful.
It's just not. It's not exciting at all, and I'm looking forward to the last phase because it looks like a lot of fun, where everyone gets to do like their own thing.
Yeah,
and
like
watch
every time we have to do the oppressor, I'm just like, okay, well,
I'll stand up my box. I'll kill my stupid little node.
Hope I don't get the number 4 stack.
Then you actually have to do stuff. Yeah, it's terrible.
Just want to stand here.
But all in all, I think it's a good fight. It might be a little bit overlong, and yeah, maybe it has a little too much personal responsibility for a lot of people to just like kind of skate by. I think a lot of people just kind of want to have a raid tier where you could skate by again, like we used to in Coil.
Yeah, I don't know. I really loved Final Coil because.
So did I. Final Coil was great.
It was still challenging, but it's really fun, and people were really excited, and the overall like team morale was really high. People wanted to get through it, and of course everything that was in those fights was really cool too, in the story and everything. So
that's part of it too. A lot of people are very down on Alexander, and I really hope for the final raid tier they change it up, and they make it exciting for people again, that they want to be in these environments, they want to do these fights, because these fights have been great in Midas. Like they've been some of the best since Final Coil, which I know is not very far removed, but still.
Yeah, I do enjoy them. Like I think they're well designed and everything, and the first 3 were actually, fairly painless for the most part, like I said, but I don't know, people just look at this giant wall of mechanics and time sink and they're like, oh well. Like I think on Ultros there's only like maybe 4 or 5 groups that have cleared it. That's
I believe
really
it's something even less than that. I think I've always seen like
3 maybe?
3 machinists up there, so.
Jeez.
And
I mean, that's really low.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot lower than it should be.
I think so too. I think so too. So I mean, there's plenty of capable people on Ultros, surprisingly enough, that can get through
Yeah,
the fight. So
but it's the whole time thing and getting 7 other people on and getting them in there. That seems to be like the biggest struggle these days.
mhm.
So I wanna kind of circle around to something that Galen said a little bit earlier, and it kind of has to go into my thinking about like, okay, where can they go from here, and what could they do to better facilitate, more of the, I would say, mid-core raiders, people who are still going in every week right now to try to get that clear. And I don't know, it's hard because what is exactly is the difficulty threshold? Because if it's too easy, then we'll have groups clearing every week, and they'll say the game's dead because all they do is go in and get their drops every week, or they're banging their heads against the wall every week, saying, "Oh, please nerf it. I'm gonna quit if I, have to go into A8 again and have to deal with all of this artificial difficulty." People throwing that kind of a tantrum, and it seems like that's kind of how it's gone either way now. It's like it's either it's too easy or it's too hard, but I feel like the threshold is that fickle. Like it's I don't know what like the right difficulty that they have to hit, because I feel we heard a lot of discussion like way back at, like even during Final Coil, and I'm just gonna say it, like people were clearing second coil, Final Coil, weeks on end, and by the end they were like saying, yeah, well, I've gotten on farm. And man, Erren, how many times did you complain about, oh man, like the bow didn't drop this week?
Mhm.
And it's like, man, you wish you could get a
Yeah,
drop
it's
now.
awful. I do wish I could get my weapon out of there right now.
So, I mean, it's so hard to me, like, how you can convey to your player base, or how you can design like that perfect, or even better, maybe perfect is impossible, but what kind of
Well,
difficulty would better nail it?
honestly, I do think Final Coil was perfect, and even though people did clear it early, the ones that were whining about it being too easy, they're like the point like 0.0001%, and that's not the majority, obviously, and
Yeah,
the
that
majority is
0.01's not going to keep the
leaving
lights
the
on.
raid scene. Right, the majority is leaving the raid scene at an alarming rate, and they're not going to come back if the raid's going to stay the same, if only like the 1% can beat it in a reasonable amount of time.
I feel the Heavensward raid legacy will be that is inverse of what 2.0's was, where people were like, "Oh man, Coil 1 is so easy compared to Final Coil." I think it's going to be, man, remember how horrible Gordius was and how it got easier as it went on? Because I think the last raid tier, if they don't make it like, I don't want to say easy, but I'm going to say easy. If they don't make it easy, I think we're going to be...
I wouldn't say easy. I would say maybe more forgiving.
Haven't they already kind of thrown out some hints that
they're
Coil,
pretty much saying that, yeah, we're gonna try and make things a little easier next time.
Well, they said
and
that for
they
this
did
one.
say that for this one, and I feel like they did for some of it, like, yeah, A5, okay, fine, whatever. That one's really easy. And 7, once you're in there, it's really not bad. 6 at first was pretty tricky just because of the gauntlet aspects of it, and people not paying attention. But they've since nerfed it, and now you can still die pretty easily, but it's not as bad as it was. Yeah, A8S, like we were saying earlier, just that level of commitment, it has to be there, and people are just running out of steam by the time that they get there.
Mm-hmm. I think that might be just the issue. Is people are just running out of steam.
So what do you think? Like, since we're gearing up for like the final Alexander tier now, and judging by the story so far, how do you think it's gonna play out?
I couldn't even hazard a guess. The end of Midas like completely took me by surprise. So I have no idea, but I just want to see Alexander move around a little bit.
They're gonna go Back to the Future.
Oh man,
You really think so?
I don't know, but they're really they've kind of got that whole like stopping time thing going on with it now, I guess.
Like we're gonna fight that Aura's boyfriend or something like that?
Or they go back into the past and we go back to Final Coil and we fight Bahamut again.
oh my god!
Because that would be amazing.
I don't know about that.
If we had a set,
Maybe-
I'd be walking off it right now.
Me too. I quit.
I forgot we had a set.
I still think that Turn 13 is one of the best fights in the game.
You know,
It is very good.
I think World of Warcraft did a bunch of legacy raids for their 10-year anniversary. And I'm kind of curious, like maybe like 10 years after the beginning of 2.0, maybe we could do something fun like a new raid, maybe like a new raid, or maybe even a trial like against Bahamut, like maybe scaled up for whatever the current end game is. Something to kind of like throw a bone to the original 2.0 version. But that's still...
yeah, I mean, not only that, but the amount of people who didn't get to experience such an important character.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit before the show that, oh my god, it's almost been 3 years now since the 2.0 version. And we were talking about, how, it still feels like a new game, but it's actually been out almost 3 years now. I think, what is it, August 27th or August 23rd that this came out in 2013? Sometime that
I
week.
think that's about right.
Kind of curious to
yeah,
see what they'll do for the anniversary.
It is hard to believe it's almost been 3 years. So then you also have to think it's been 6 years since 1.0 came out originally, so 14's been around for a long time.
Definitely not a 10 years in development game.
Well,
actually,
I mean, they did show a prototype of it back in like 2005 or whatever it was.
So maybe, I don't know. If you count maybe 2005 to 2013 as development time, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I mean, A Realm Reborn was basically remade within, what was it, 3 years?
I think so. Well, actually, no.
A little less than that. Like 18 months, maybe?
18 months of maybe a little bit of planning beforehand, but because they kind of, did this at the same time as Vanilla 1.0 was continuing to suck the life out of everyone.
Yoshida took over in 2011.
And that's when there were actual notable improvements to 1.0, like, hey, like they actually started fixing stuff, adding new stuff like the job system.
They actually added a tutorial so you could learn how to play the game and where you're supposed to go. Those are important.
It's come a long way.
And I hope, it really has, and I hope that, I'm really excited to see where this game goes. I feel that as far as content goes, I do feel that this game is pretty much set in a certain structure. I do think that they'll try to explore and, what am I trying to say? Experiment with new things like the Deep Dungeon, like the Diadem. That didn't go too well, but it just shows that they've been trying to experiment with different things. I think if
Oh
they
man, I've
continue
been
to
in
do
there
that,
forever.
yeah, I have no idea how they could possibly work that into some sort of gameplay system in the future, but if they continue to experiment with new things, but also provide like a steady, reliable amount of content, I think people will still, definitely come back for more with like expansions and patches. You can definitely tell that, a lot of people, there are lulls that the game goes through, before patches or expansions, but I feel that there's definitely still a strong base that comes back for more, maybe 4 times a month, maybe 6 months at a time after an expansion, and then I feel that a lot of people get hung up on who's here month after month forever, that they don't understand that Square still makes, decent profit out of people who maybe sub for a patch month, take a break until another patch. So I don't know if I feel that they can keep the game, continually relevant, then or relevant, I should say, that they're probably not going to have amazeballs success, but my hope is that they're able to continue budgeting for the patches that we get, and the expansions that we get.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to 4.0.
Or 5.0 or 6.0.
Well, we'll just start with 4.0.
Yeah, see what they do first that we can see like within the near future, and then kind of speculate from there.
Yeah, I really hope that this game also has a 14 or 15-year legacy like Final Fantasy XI. Just because I play this one more than I did 11, so.
Yeah, I really hope that it keeps going for a long time, because I feel like it's one of those things that I can always fall back on when I'm not playing something else, or if I am playing something else and I get maybe disappointed by it, or I finish it quickly or whatever, then I can just go back to 14.
So, it's been about 2 hours now since we've started the show, and so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank Erren, Michael, and Mike for joining us once again for another episode. We're going to be on YouTube, SoundCloud, and all that jazz, just as we always are. Feel free to check out the archive of the other episodes too. But anyway, we'll have more content this month and the rest of the summer on novacrystallis.com. And feel free to check out our YouTube channel, where we've been uploading a lot of Star Ocean 5 footage. Thanks again for watching, guys, and stay tuned for next time.